come through here, and a lot of people have brought young dogs and older dogs that didn't have a foundation to be able to perform at a high level in ring sport. And I was always thinking that maybe if we could help people find out a little bit better techniques on how to develop a young dog so that when he begins to do the work for the sport, the dog is not so far behind, and then the dog has to really start to do things that he should have done when he was a puppy. So what we're going to cover is from the time that a puppy is born to when a puppy starts teething, which is 4.5 months. The most important things that you have to do during that time to make sure that your puppy is properly imprinted as far as the working, the prey biting, the ball work, which is broken down into 3 parts. It's broken down into the chasing of the ball, the retrieving of the ball, and the hunting for the ball, and being socialized. It's very important for the puppy to be very well socialized, that it's desensitized, and it's overall stable and has a sound mind, and is not stressed by any new situations or any new people that might come around and cause any kind of fear or insecurity towards the puppy. The main thing is to make sure that the puppy starts off before he ever gets to do the work. As soon as the puppy is born, leaves his litter to have no fears and to be sound mind and a very, very high working ability. That's what we're going to be looking for. Okay, so what we're going to cover is we're going to talk about imprinting and socializing puppies before they teeth, instincts versus drives. A lot of people always ask me, what's the difference between instincts and drive? We're going to cover that. We're going to cover also the methods of socializations for the puppy, how to socialize the puppy, the philosophy of the motivational imprinting. All the imprinting with the puppies is done motivationally. It's never done forcing him to do anything that he doesn't want to do. We use the puppy's instincts that he is born with to develop his personality, his character, and also his working ability. We're going to also talk about which motivators the puppy should be worked with. That's very important. There's 3 very important motivators that you use to develop the puppy, to teach him what's right and what's not right, to develop his instincts from instinct to drive. You can use the puppy's bite. That's the first motivator. You can use the puppy's ball drive. That's the second motivator. And you can use the puppy's appetite. That's the third motivator. Okay. We're going to talk about also when to introduce the young dog to the baton, when to introduce the dog to gunfire, how to imprint prey biting instincts. The puppy is born, again, with the instincts to bite from the bloodline that he's out of, from his parents, from his grandparents, from his great-grandparents. Each puppy has traits from his whole bloodline. He might show strengths or weaknesses from his grandfather, or maybe from his great-grandfather. It doesn't have to be right from the mother or the father. It could be somewhere down the line. If the stronger the working line, the better the chance of your dog being solid all the way through. We're going to talk also about when the stages of whelp, when the puppy is being whelped, the first 8 weeks. We're going to talk about how to select a puppy, which is no exact science. We're going to talk about how to develop the ball instinct, the retrieval drive, the hunt drive, to make it to convert the puppy from having the instincts to retrieve, to hunt for the ball, and convert that instinct into full-blown retrieval drive, full-blown hunt drive, where the dog is retrieving at a high level of performance, where the dog is hunting for whatever you tell him to look for, something that he can't see with his own eyes, but he has to use his nose to be able to detect it, find it, and bring it back to you at a high level. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about the exercises that you should be imprinting for the sport of French ring at an early age, such as changes of positions, imprinting the send away, imprinting the basket. We're going to be talking about how to teach the recall for obedience exercises or for when he's doing bite work. We're going to also talk about how to imprint the recall, the out, and the recall. How to imprint the out for the guards. We're going to be covering all that. That's very important for a dog that's going to be working in such a difficult program as French ring, to be able to understand how to out properly, to understand it clearly, not to have any doubts about how or when to out, not to have any doubts, to understand every guard perfectly with no extra biting. First step for that is to understand when to out, when to come back to the handler when called. It's very important, and in French ring sport, your dog must recall it within a certain amount of time. Can't take forever. It's a very difficult program, so the sport is best competed with a dog that has been started as a young dog, has been imprinted for this type of work. It's a very difficult program, like I said. The dog has to be imprinted with a decoy holding a baton. He has to be imprinted hearing gunfire. With a puppy, you never have gunfire close to the puppy. It's always at a distance. We're going to be covering all that. Also, if any of you guys have any questions, okay, feel free to ask me right there and then. This is for you, for your knowledge. Anything that comes up pertaining to puppies before they start teething at 4.5 months, go ahead and ask. Any question whatsoever. If I'm in the middle of saying something, feel free to write it down so you won't forget it. If you get a thought, then ask me. Okay? I don't want you to go away with any thoughts that I forgot to ask him this, I forgot to ask him that. We're going to work all the puppies as a group first, and then we're going to work all the puppies individually. So we can get started. Anybody has any questions? Okay. Kevin, got any questions?
Yeah.
Okay, good. No questions. Okay. Okay, let's talk first about the difference between instincts and drive. All right. We have a litter of puppies. Okay. First of all, for this sport, we should only breed dogs that are out of working lines. Preferably dogs that have been working in French ring sport. I'll explain to you why. French ring sport is a unique sport, and in the point of view where when a dog that has been bred by parents that have been competing in French ring sport, you can tell certain things that you can't tell from parents that have been bred in other sports. For example, if you're going to go select a puppy from a line of Shih Tzu dogs, Shih Tzu, let me tell you, is a very good sport. In this country, there are a lot of very good Shih Tzu trainers. I respect Shih Tzu. I started out in Shih Tzu. I love Shih Tzu. But in Shih Tzu, there's very little biting, All the biting is done with the dog's head like this. There's no rotation of the dog's head. All the bites are frontal, so you can't see which dogs are very good at rotating their heads and holding the bite under the pressure of a French ring decoy at different levels, level 1, level 2, or level 3. You cannot tell, for example, if this dog that has been bred by Shih Tzu parents can bite rotating his head properly. Okay, for example, in French ring, the dogs, you know that the dogs rotate well, they bite well, they have been tested and proven that they can take, for example, if you breed out of ring 3 dogs, that they can take ring 3 level of pressure with a baton. They can take the difficulty of the program of French ring sport as far as being able to absorb the training, the nerves, the stamina, the drive to be able to do escorts, to be able to do guards. This sport, French ring sport, is a sport that is like 50-60% biting. And not only that, what makes it more difficult than any other sport is that out of that 50-60%, you have half guards. There's a lot of guards involved in this sport. If your dog cannot guard properly, your dog cannot advance in this sport. There's a lot of guarding involved, and all the other sports, there's not much guarding involved. So the most difficult thing about this sport is that your dog must be able to guard cleanly, out cleanly without extra biting, or else you will have point deductions. Your dog has to be able to guard and bite, guard and bite, guard and bite, escort, guard, deal with escapes, deal with batons, deal with gunfire, has to be able to deal with a lot of stress. Also, after the dog bites, the dog has to be able to cope with the pressure that the decoy inflicts on the dog while he's biting. Not before he gets to the bite, but while he's biting. In other sports, Belgium ring, Mondio ring, it's very difficult because every trial is different, and you have a lot of environmental stressors before the dog gets to the bite. But I feel that with good training, you can condition a dog to go through all that stuff. Once he gets to the decoy and bites the decoy, such as in Shih Tzu, he's got it made. And the dog can be taught to learn that. Once I get through all this, I can get a bite, I got it made. I'm not going to get any resistance, any pressure, they're not going to mess with me. Like in French ring sport. In French ring sport, the dog bites, and that's when the battle starts. That's when you got to show your game. So you're breeding from lines that have proven to do this work. Okay? Another example is the agility. You go to other sports like Shih Tzu, the agility is very minimal. You cannot see if that bloodline in Shih Tzu develops good agility dogs. Most of the Shih Tzu dogs are very big, very strong, very hard biting, very good dogs, but very little agility. You don't know if the palisade, the wall, if they can climb well. You don't know if they can do a good long jump. The agility in French ring sport is brutal. It could get brutal, you know. The training of it is very difficult. So you need a dog that's proven to be able to do that, because believe it or not, all of that is passed down in the instincts, in the genetics, in the bloodline, which is something that you have to consider before purchasing a puppy to be able to do this kind of work. Okay? Another example is the main thing is that you don't want to reinvent the wheel when purchasing a puppy or obtaining a puppy or breeding a puppy for this sport. You don't want to reinvent the wheel. You don't want to go with a new bloodline. I would suggest that you stick to a proven French ring line, just because of the difficulty of this program. The instincts are passed down from these puppies, okay, into these puppies. Now, it is the trainer's job, the handler's job, to develop those instincts into drive. How do we develop those instincts into drive? Well, we have to have good technique. Everything in this sport is all about technique. What technique do you use in your training? Especially when you're training puppies. The training, when you come to the training field, to me, it's very serious because your puppy is like a computer. Everything that you do while you're around him on a training field, he remembers. He takes it with him to his cage and he sleeps on it. If you use bad technique with a puppy, you're imprinting bad technique. The first 4.5 months of this puppy's life is all imprinting. And it's going to have the biggest psychological effect on the dog, the type of training that you put into him. So your imprinting basically is very, very, very crucial. I feel that if you come out and every time you do a training session with your puppy, okay, it's short, but it's very well performed with good technique, and the puppy is well motivated, and the puppy is enjoying what he's doing, and the puppy is always very happy, okay? If his tail's pointing up and waggling, that is your indicator. The puppy's being trained with good technique. He's not stressed out. If you see that the puppy's tail is pointing straight or aiming down, stop what you're doing. That's his gas gauge. He's telling you, hey, I'm out of gas. I'm stressed out by what you're doing to me. Always look at your puppy's tail. If the puppy's tail is pointing up and waggling, you're doing good. He understands everything you're giving to him. He's digesting it and he's absorbing it and he's loving it. He's enjoying it. Okay? So it's very important when you are developing your instincts into drive that you use very good technique. It's crucial. Your puppy will start developing and showing you drive. Okay? Real prey drive in the prey biting, real intense ball drive, okay, real intense hunt drive and retrieval drive, hopefully with a top-notch bloodline at around 3.5 months. From 3.5 months to 4.5 months, once he starts teething, okay, he'll be showing you that. If you've worked him properly. With a puppy, you can work him 4 to 5 times a week, okay? Don't work him every day. Work him 4 to 5 times a week. Try to spend time with him every day. You know, the training sessions must be short and they must be very precise with very good technique. There cannot be any confusion. There cannot be any wasted time. Every time your puppy comes out of that crate for the first 4.5 months, it has to be with good technique. I don't know how important it is for me to emphasize that. Okay, and every time he does a training session, you must rehearse and you must know. Never go train your puppy without knowing what to do today. Always think about what you're going to do before you bring him out. And everything that you do with that dog, as long as he's in that training, must have a purpose. Must have a purpose. It cannot be wasted time because your dog is going to go out there and be confused. The only way that puppy's going to be well imprinted and advanced is if he is trained with a purpose every time he comes out. You want to come out of the crate, huh? Okay. So at 3.5 to 4.5 months, you'll be seeing hopefully good drive. The beginning of full-blown drive. If you've done a good job, you'll be able to see your puppy already into drive. When you show him the sack, when you show him a tug, when you show him a ball, when you ask him to retrieve, when you ask him to hunt, he should be already working full drive. All out. Crazy for it and enjoying it and loving it. I mean, to the point where he's dying to do what you're asking him. If he's working like this, then your training is being performed properly. If he's not doing it like that, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. It's either the puppy's bloodline, okay, or it's either your training technique. But something is wrong. The puppy must be in high gear. Once he gets to that 3.5 to 4.5 months. I have a question. Okay.
Well,
Do me a favor. Close the door, the sliding door.
Yeah, write it down.
Go ahead, Joe.
Well, the question is, perfect example.
Speak up a little louder.
All right, the question is, the pup that you gave me now, he's just coming out, whereas John's dog, same litter, significant difference. How much will I be hindered now because of that? When will it eventually kick in?
Okay. To explain to you guys what that question is, I own Barracuda, which is a puppy out of the Lee Layla litter that was born January 20th of this year. Joe is in the process of buying a puppy, so I'm letting him handle a puppy so that he can get the experience in working with a young dog. The dog has never been in training. Since the first time she's ever been to the club, she's been in a cage all her life. I wasn't thinking about working this dog for sport. Okay, I made my mind up 2 weeks ago because I have her two brothers that I'm working for the sport. So 2 weeks ago, I bring her to the club for the first time. She had seen a flirt pole one time when she was 10 weeks old, and the Friday before last Saturday. So she's been to the club. Been training 3 times, and the puppy's not socialized. The puppy, she's showing that she can bite good because of her bloodline, but not because she's had any kind of work. The puppy's walking around with her tail between her legs, you know, when she sees new people. So he's asking me, when will this puppy come out of it? Is that the question?
Basically, yeah. Will she be aggressive to other dogs all the time now?
Okay. In this situation, see, when you don't start the dog off at 8 weeks, then you have to wait for the dog to eventually be socialized around other dogs by coming to the club, to catch up on the puppy bite work, to catch up on the retrieval work, to catch up on everything. But it'll happen. It'll just take a little bit longer. Usually, by the time the dog is ready to start protection, after he finishes teething at 7 months, the dog is there. Okay? It's very important also, while the dog is teething, to work the dog at the biting. Now, there's no powerful biting involved, but there's calm down, you know, very low intensity, but you must keep the dog biting while he's teething. It's not bad for his teeth. It's good for his teeth if there's no overpowering type of sack work. But you must keep the dog biting, because if you don't, you're going to lose hardness of mouth. If you do not bite, let the dog bite while he's teething, the dog is not going to have to, because when the dog reaches 3 to 4.5 months, the dog develops the hardest mouth he's going to develop. They'll be able to hang on the sack, and you can feel through the sack, through the flirt pole, through your hand, the power of his bite at that age. And if you do not let him bite when he's teething from 4.5 to 7 months, you're going to lose that by half.
Because I would like to add that basically what you said is significantly important in the fact that John's dog out of the same litter, it's night and day difference, showing you how important it is, as you say, from the 8 weeks of working him and getting him and imprinting him, as opposed to 3 or 4 months down the road.
Absolutely, you can see the difference.
What
right there.
yeah,
That's a perfect example.
You lose so much.
That's a perfect example, the perfect illustration. Seeing a dog, for example, John's puppy, he's videotaping the seminar. John Downton, he's one of our decoys, has a puppy from the same litter. But he's been putting a lot of time into the dog. He's been imprinting it properly, bringing it. Since the dog is what, John, 8 weeks?
Yeah.
Since 8 weeks he's had the dog. So the dog is doing real good. The only setback the puppy has had is she got hookworms and she lost weight. But the drive is still there. Everything is there. Okay, that's something we couldn't prevent. It was an unforeseeable problem. But you can see the difference. That dog's not socialized. That dog's walking around, not knowing what to expect. Everything is new to them. It's perfectly normal. And John's puppy is super socialized. She's outgoing. She's happy to see everybody. Nothing faces her. She can do whatever you ask of her. Nice snake. You want to do the seminar too?
Little snake, don't worry about it.
She's here for the bite work, not for the ball work. Okay, is that a black racer, John?
Yeah.
All right.
Go see.
Okay. I guess that pretty much covers what I wanted to let you guys know about instincts versus drive. Do you guys have any questions about instincts of a puppy and how to develop them into drive? Any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
For French ring, I see a lot of Belgian Malinois.
Speak up a little bit, Kevin.
Okay. When I was here the last time you had an event, I see a lot of Shepherds and Belgian Malinois, and I was wondering, how does it, like, I have the breed of Rottweiler, how that can fit in, as far as that particular breed that may be bred for something more like Shih Tzu.
Right. Is your Rottweiler out of working lines?
Two of them.
Two of them are? Okay. The Rottweiler breed is a very good breed. And the Rottweiler breed is a breed that has done very well in Shih Tzu and in other stock sports. In France, when I was in France last year, I saw a Rottweiler in the Champagne-Ardenne Championships. He got second place or third place in Ring 1 in the championships. The dog was a very good dog. It's all working line. The dog was very good. I feel if the dog has good working ability with a good solid bloodline, okay, no matter what breed it may be, if the dog has a proven working history in that bloodline, I feel that with good training technique, okay, at the very least you can give it a good attempt. And with a good trainer that can help you through all those days and all those weeks and all those months of hard work and good technique each time you go out to the training field, I feel that you have a good shot. As long as the dog has good drive, okay, and you're dedicated, I see no reason why. Now, there's pros and there's cons. The pros are that if you're dedicated and you don't miss trainings and you have the good bloodline, that your dog will get trained. Now, in this sport, since there's not a big history of Rottweilers doing it, we don't know how far. We have no idea how far you might be able to get, but you got a real good chance of being one of the trendsetters. Okay? One of the founders of that breed in this sport. That's a challenge to you as a trainer that you might want to take. Okay? The cons are that you don't know, okay, if you're wasting your time or if you're going for the short thing. You know what I mean? But if you love that breed and you have confidence in that breed, that's all it takes. As long as you have a good working bloodline. You must have good working bloodline for this sport.
See, the one dog that I have that has good working bloodline, she has hip dysplasia. She's 3 years old. Out of the possible 10 potential problems, she has 6. She has osteoarthritis fairly bad. I've already spayed her.
Okay, which family member of the dog is this?
It's one I bought separately. The other the other one that has good working.
No, Ray.
What?
Camera. Just turn the camera to him.
That's what I'm doing.
No, the other way. Not
It
the
swivels
tripod.
itself, not the tripod.
The other one is the father to Osiris.
Okay, so the one with hip dysplasia is out of the mother's side or the father's
No,
side?
it's separate. It's one I bought separately.
Oh,
And then
okay.
I have the parents and then I have the son here.
Okay.
The one has real strong prey drive and good working credentials. Has hip dysplasia. I've had her spayed and I have a problem with her. The other one, the reason I'm asking about the breed is his father is from a good working line. And that's why I brought him to see if there was something I could do with the father.
How about the mother?
She doesn't come from a strong working line, but she has fairly good prey drive. I mean, she's ball retrieval is pretty good. Prey drive is pretty good. I never really worked her.
Okay. How about her grandfather and her grandmother? Her mother and her grandmother, which is this dog's grandparents.
They're from a working line.
Are they trained and titled?
The grandfather is.
Shih Tzu.
Yeah.
So the mother of your dog and the father of your dog are trained dogs, and they come from solid working lines.
No, the mother has champion in her line. The father has champion farther back in the line.
But champion as far as show, or titled as far as working?
Working. One is in the grandfather's line. One is in like the great grandfather's line.
Okay, I'll explain to you your question. What happens in that situation is this, okay? Your dog is a dog that comes from a set of parents that haven't been trained. Okay? So what happens? Oh, and the grandparents are trained. Okay? So what happens? Here's your dog, here's his parents, and here's the grandparents. Okay? The grandparents are trained and they come from working lines. Okay? Your dog's parents is this right here. The mother and the father are receiving in the breeding the instincts and the drive from the training that they received. His parents have it. Okay? But your puppy, which is out of the litter of these two, is receiving the instincts only of the parents. Not any working drive because they were never trained. So your puppy's dealing with half a filled glass. He's not taking in from the parents the drives that they have. He's just taking in the instincts. Okay? That's the problem that I see there.
Right.
He's got the instincts, he's got the bloodlines. It might be able to be developed into a good dog. It's possible, it has happened before.
Right.
But you're going into the most difficult sport in the world with a young dog that the parents have a lot of instincts. Okay? Passing down to their litter. Whatever they did in their life, okay? If they were not trained, okay, but they came from trained parents with working lines, okay, they're going to have only what they have done in their life, which is the instincts. They only retain the instincts. They haven't retained any training, so they have no drive. What are they going to pass down to their offspring? What do they have to offer? Only instincts. You understand?
I understand.
So your puppy is entering the toughest sport there is in the world, okay, that demands. I mean, a dog that's bred, I mean, soundly, every generation, to give you a hope and a prayer in the most difficult training program there is. It's possible, Kevin. It's possible. People have done it before. There's many breedings where only the father has been worked and the mother has never been worked. Okay? And the puppies come out awesome for the sport. Okay? Also, there's in France, many people don't use females for this sport because it's such a difficult sport that they don't want a female. They want a male. So they title all the males in the lines and the females are never titled. But they're trained. A breeder in France will always keep the most social dog for breeding, the female, and the best biting female. And they train the dogs to bite the arms. They don't even teach them to bite the legs, nothing. But they develop biting the arm to retain that working ability in that female in the biting. Okay? And the ones that show the best bite, the strongest drive, the most overpowering bites, are the ones they use to breed, to produce, and the most social, and the best hips. They look for best hips, most social, and strongest fighting spirit.
That's why on the paper on the bottom I put spectator, because I know from that,
Yeah.
I don't know if he's going to be workable.
Well, you don't know. Maybe he will be.
Right, that's why I said.
Okay. This is not an exact science.
Right.
Okay. This is not an exact science. It's not. But what I can explain to you is through my years of experience, okay, of breeding many litters and keeping the whole litter and developing them and training them, okay, what I've seen for sure in all those years of breeding and training, okay, and traveling and training with other people, seeing their outcome, you know, that's how it works. What the parents have to offer is what the puppies are going to show. That's how it works. There's sometimes you have super working dogs. I've seen this happen. Okay, super working dogs that have puppies, and those puppies never get trained, and those puppies have, when they grow up, they have a litter, and the puppies out of that litter, they get trained and they turn out to be very, very good. Now, they're very, very good, but they're never, okay, gonna be as good as a puppy that's always been developed properly every generation.
I didn't know that. I thought just the fact that they came with working lines themselves It's good enough.
No. That's why training is so important. If it would be so, then people don't need working sports to develop a dog's working ability. See, all dogs, all show dogs come from working lines. Okay. You start taking dogs out of working lines to develop a certain look, a bigger chest, a bigger head, and breeding for that. But you're not doing the working ability part. Guess what? You're going to be losing and washing that out of that bloodline. Okay. That is the reason why you must have, if you're developing a working line, you must have training in every generation. You must have, or else you're going to lose the working ability in that bloodline, and that's strength. It's very important. In your dog's case, I feel that the best case scenario for me to be honest and tell you what I think is for me to work your dog and see what we have, because I've never even worked your dog before. You know what I mean? It's like taking a shot in the dark, you know?
See, across the street is, I had the neighbor bought one of the brothers, and the other brothers seem to have a lot of that strong, ball retrieval, prey drive, that kind of stuff.
Right.
I don't see that in him.
He's lazy.
Okay.
He is, it's like when I practice with Berlin.
Right.
He's not real aggressive about it.
Right.
And, I'm wondering, because Kay came here, whether or not he would be worth spending the time developing that.
That's a very good question. Okay. In my experiences breeding and training, there has been many cases, okay, where, and all the breedings that I've done, I've documented them. I got a big fat book like this with all the breedings and all the names of the puppies and how they turned out, everything. I got a good breeding log. There's been many cases where I go to select puppies out of a litter, and the ones that never showed any interest in prey biting, never showed any interest in ball retrieval, never showed a high level of sociability, turned out to be the best dog in that litter later on. When the dogs were 1.5 years, 2 years old, they were late bloomers. That happens a lot in breeding. Not all the times. It is not an exact science. Not all the times the puppy that you select at that time, when you select a puppy in a litter, okay, there's very few things that you can see. I see videos of people talking about selecting puppies where they talk about pinching a puppy to see if the dog can take tolerance of pain. I mean, man, that's all to sell videos, you know what I mean? There's no way that you can tell at that age which puppy for sure is going to be the best one. The only thing that you can see when selecting a litter is who has the best prey biting ability, who has the highest level at that age for prey biting. And then if you decide to go with that one, to hope and pray that when the dog develops in the next months, that he's not going to be passed up by the other ones that aren't showing it, or that he'll stay the best one through good training. Because it could happen. The other ones could pass him up. Okay? You could also see who has the best ball drive. You could also see who has the best retrieval drive and who has a little bit of, who has the best sociability. Who's the most social one out of the whole litter? Those are the things that you can see for sure in a puppy. I mean, the other little details that you add to it, the other bells and whistles of selecting a puppy are just a shot in the dark. I'm telling you, because from like what happened and the question you just made, a lot of dogs that haven't shown it. For example, I have a female, her name is Tara. Tara came out of a litter where all the dogs were phenomenal, incredible biters. They would all hang on the sack. At 8 weeks, the third time on the sack, I could lift them, the whole litter up and go like this, and they wouldn't let go. They were alligators. The whole litter. Okay? And she never showed any interest. So she was like about 1.5 years. She was, I would say, my God, that dog's a dud. She's going to be a dud. Tell you what, Tara today was the toughest biting dog out of the whole litter, except for one man. He's a police dog now. But it happens. It's not an exact science. You have cases where your puppy might not be showing in that litter that you're going to go select. You know what I mean? Your puppy, for example, I've seen other people say that if the puppy comes up to the fence and is the most social one, that's going to be the strongest one mentally. I tell you what, that is not the case all the time. A lot of the times, the one that's sitting in the back, that's not social, is having a bad day. And he could be the most dominant social dog in that litter, and you don't know it. Or the late bloomer that's going to turn out to be the superstar. Okay, it's really, when you're selecting a puppy, it's a crapshoot, and you're hoping that the percentages are on your side. And then, even then, when you select, if you do select the best one out of that litter, you're hoping that he could do the work later on down the road and be a champion. Okay? But there's been very, very, very many picks of the litters that never made it to ring 3. Understand? Do you understand how difficult this all is? Okay? It's very important that you guys have an open mind and you guys understand what you're getting into before you get into it, because the more knowledge you have in this sport, the better it is going to be for you to be able to dominate it.
Question?
Sure.
Based on the fact that, like you said, selecting a puppy really is a crapshoot, is there a significant age that will allow you to make a better choice?
Yes. The best way, okay, the best way not to miss, okay, is to keep the whole litter. If you're into sport, do what I do. I keep the whole kit and caboodle. At least when I started. Now I can't do it because I got a zillion dogs and my wife doesn't like it. And my neighbors don't either. But I used to keep the whole litter. I have a kennel down in Dade County. You know, I got cages, puppy runs. I keep the whole litter out of my best breedings until their dogs are like 12, 13 months.
Just
Working them 5 times a week, developing them to see who becomes the strongest one. That's the only way to know. If you keep the whole litter, that's the only way to know. And when they're 12, 13, 14 months, if you've been working them properly in this system, okay, then you'll have a true gauge of which one's going to be the best one.
I understand.
Sometimes you can see it a lot earlier than that.
Aside from that, though, if you're not a breeder and you're not keeping the whole litter,
That's the
and
only
you want,
way,
if you want a great dog,
I'm telling you, Joe.
still you don't
I'm
know.
telling you, Joe. The only one that knows that is God, and I'm not God.
So
Okay.
then there is no answer.
And any trainer that tells you that there's a specific way to pick a puppy,
Not a puppy. I'm
that
talking-
puppy, that trainer is just as smart as the puppy, because it's impossible. It's impossible. It's an inexact science.
So if you buy a dog 15 months, 16 months, it's still a gamble as it was a puppy.
It's still a gamble.
Unless
The only
you know
thing,
that particular, the whole history of that.
exactly. The only thing that you could do is put the percentages on your side. The only thing that you could do is put the percentages on your side to be able to have a better chance of getting there, to having that champion dog. Okay, that's strong, solid, all around, overpowering biter, super social, well trained, ring 3, that can win the championship. Okay, that should be everybody's goal. Okay, if you're competitive. If you're not, you can come out here and have fun, just hang out, you know, go to the trials. Everybody's goal doesn't have to be the same. But if you put the percentages on your side by getting the one that's been bred, for example, in a solid French ring line versus a solid Schützen line, solid Belgian ring line, solid KMPV line, solid whatever other sport there is, if you get the one that has been proven to produce, that has already a little bit of a factory going on in there, and even though lines can throw 100 puppies and maybe 200 puppies and maybe 3,000, 4,000 puppies and maybe one is going to make it to the championships. That's how difficult it is. The best lines in France, they're producing a couple hundred puppies a year. I only see in the championships 1 or 2. Lux Mouton, they produce 500, 600, 400, 300. Other lines, 200, 300 puppies. Nollery, De La Virginie, there's a lot of top minds that are producing a lot of puppies, and I don't see a lot of them in the championship. I see one or two though every year. But out of all the puppies they produce, that's a very small percentage. You understand? Right. So the best thing to do is put the percentages on your side. That's the only thing that you can do. You can see, for example, if the puppy has an overpowering bite from a young age, you can see it. Okay? And if you don't stick him in a crate and forget about him, you can work on that. You can build on that. Okay? You can see if the dog is social. You can see that. A social dog is a strong dog. You must have a social puppy. A social puppy is very, very important. Sometimes it's more important than a strong biter. Okay? Because you could have a dog that's not biting the best in that litter, but he could develop later through good training to be a very good biter. But as long as his mind is solid, that's what's going to make him strong later on. If his mind is weak, that's a problem. Because you don't have a chance for blooming late, for developing later on. You know right there what you have. It's very important to have a very social dog because never keep a puppy unsocialized. Never. Okay? For sport, for police work, for personal protection, there's no need. The only time you do not socialize a puppy is for guard dog work. Because there's such a thing as making a puppy antisocial. You can develop a puppy in an antisocial way through strength, through prey training and fight drive training, not defense, and make him a strong biter, not a fear biter, a very territorial, dominant, overpowering fight drive dog, okay, and make him a solid antisocial dog for guard dog work. But we're not talking about that here. What we're talking about here is developing a dog that's super social, a dog that could rather come up to a stranger. For example, we're talking about Kaya, John's puppy. Rather come up to a stranger, okay, and say hello or get aggressive with him if he has to. Later on, when that dog grows up and that dog is fully trained, that dog's not going to be scared of strangers. You can walk up to a stranger that's 6'9" and is a mass murderer with a gun in his pocket or whatever. He's going to shoot you and your dog, but this is what's going to happen. The dog comes up to the guy and he's super social with him. He'd rather lick you than bite you. That's what you're looking for. A dog that would rather lick you than bite you. Either or. You know what I mean? Just like with the gun. You want a dog that doesn't show any indifference with the gun. You don't want a dog that shows fear or shows aggression. You can train the dog in the sport to show aggression. You can teach a dog when the gunshot is for this sport. A lot of techniques are used where when the gunshot goes off, you teach the dog that's the green light to go bite. Good training technique for French ring. But when you're selecting a puppy, you'd rather have a dog that's indifferent, that'll rather lick you than bite you. That's solid nerves. Very important when selecting a puppy. Any questions as far as anything in your mind? Okay, we're going to talk a little bit more about stuff that's very important, you know. Then after that, we're going to take a lunch break. Then we're going to wait until it cools down a little bit. We're going to start working the puppies as a group, and then we'll work them individually. Okay? Let's talk about the motivators. Okay? Kevin and Ray, you both put down that you want to, you know, that this interests you. Okay, very good. Before I start talking about it, are there any questions that you guys have in reference to motivators? What are the motivators? How should you use them? How do you develop them from instinct to drive? Any question?
I just want to make sure I don't want to make any mistakes. Like when we first started the basket, you can remember how stressed Peppy was and how he even got away from the harness.
Yeah.
And how he hated it. Right. And when I said to you, I said, oh my God, he's never going to do this.
Right.
So what I did, I went home, I got the my cooler, put it in the thing, and with the tug, and with food motivation, got him to pop.
So you use your motivator
Right.
to take away any stress that he had
Right,
towards
and made him
exercise.
happy with it. I didn't do anything, just straddled him, looked around the neighborhood, you know,
That's a good
petted him
training
every now and then, and they kept turning him. That way I could get the technique of turning him, not with anybody walking around us. So I used that to motivate him. Then, the next day or 2 days later, I went outside and put the cooler down, and without me saying a word, he just went, boop, boop.
Yeah. See, what happened there, Ray, is that your dog had to be desensitized to standing on things. So what you did was you used a good training technique. You used the motivator to let him know it's okay to stand on himself. It's just like when you're starting a dog up, a puppy up, changes a position on a table. Whenever you start anything that's new in training with a young dog and imprinting, and the dog has his tail between his legs. For example, we're going to do change the positions. We're going to put the dog on top of a table. Okay? And the dog, when he's on top of the table, is scared. What do? You don't go into the training. You deal with that. You teach the dog or help the dog to become comfortable being on top of the table before you even start the training. If you start doing changes of positions when the dog is all stressed out, he ain't going to pay attention. It's not going to be good training technique. Remember what we talked about? Every training session has to have a purpose and has to be done with no mistakes. That's how the dog goes from step to step to step with no problems, right up the ladder. First thing you do is, like what Ray did, you take out a tug, you let him bite on the table, and make him change his mind about what he's scared of. You let him know, hey, it's okay to be up here, you're having fun. You use a motivator, it's biting, to take away the stress of being on the table. That's what Ray did with the basket, with the toolbox that we used in the dog. Any other questions? How about you, buddy? Okay.
So
okay.
you have food, tug, ball, motivator. Is that?
Right. Now, I want you to understand, see, motivators, okay, the food, the ball, and the tug is what we use as trainers to motivate the dog. But I don't want you thinking about what we use as trainers to motivate the dog. I want you thinking about what the dog is thinking, what the puppy is thinking. Hey, why is this tug? Why is this ball? Why is this food being shown to me in this training? You have to think like a dog in order to be a good dog trainer. Okay? What you're really using is the dog's drive to bite. What you're really using is the dog's appetite for food. What you're really using is the dog's desire to chase the ball and to play with his playground. Okay, there's a big difference too between biting, his biting drive, his playing drive, and his appetite. I'll explain that too. Okay, the main thing is I want you to understand what the dog is thinking at all times. Always ask yourself, is this technique that I'm going to use now going to be a good technique? What makes a good technique? Something that is easily understood by the dog, that is simple, not complicated. A simple technique is a good technique. Something that's black and white for the puppy to understand. If my actions, before you do anything, what is he going to think when I do this? That's the first thing you got to think about. Okay, so as long as you as handlers understand that it's not the tug, it's the biting, the drive to bite, you are going to use his will to bite as a reward for him, to get him to do what you want him to do. That's a motivator. You are going to use his appetite, his hunger, as a reward for what you want him to do with food. You're going to use his ability to chase a ball, his will to bring it back, his will to hunt for the ball, to be able to train the dog to do whatever you want him to do. Those three motivators are what's going to help you in the beginning stages of the dog's life, in the middle stages of the dog's life, and in the advanced stages of the dog's life in training, to get him to do whatever you want for you. That's the importance of motivators. Okay? There's a difference in the three motivators. There's a difference. The difference is the biting. What is the dog thinking? That's the difference. What drive is the dog in when he's biting, when he's playing, and when he's eating? Okay? You have to understand drives as a dog trainer and a handler. You have to understand what drive is the dog in when he's working. What is the dog thinking? Is the dog thinking prey? Is the dog thinking fight drive? Is the dog thinking play drive? Is the dog thinking hunger? What's the dog thinking? That is important for you to be able to detect. You have to look at a puppy and be able to detect these things that you see in him when you're working. When you work a puppy, he's going to show you signs. He's going to show you certain things that you have to be able to detect. You have to have a skilled eye for that. Okay? There's a difference. When a dog is biting, the dog is biting. Okay, prey biting. A tug. The dog is not playing. The dog is hunting. Okay, the dog is thinking work. Biting, prey drive. Hunting to find and to kill my prey. Okay? The dog is thinking biting. Okay, working drive. Not play drive, working drive. When you show a tug to a dog and he's biting it, okay, when you have it in prey, the dog is working. The dog is not playing. When the dog is being shown a ball and the ball is being thrown, a lot of people think that's prey drive. That is not prey drive. Okay? That is the dog's ball drive when he's playing. The dog has common sense enough to know the difference between working ability when he's hunting and prey drive and when he's playing with the ball. He knows the difference between the tug, the sack, the sleeve, the suits, and he knows the difference between a ball. So when he sees a ball, he's in play drive. When he sees the equipment that you use for training, he's in prey drive. Okay? You got to understand the difference. All right? The food. There's a lot of times the food is used only one time. Only one time. Think of this and you'll know when to use the food. When it's not practical to use a ball and you want to reward any action, okay, of good performance after using the tug as a motivator. When the dog is being rewarded with a bite and you want to teach him a technique that works off that bite, you use the food. When you're imprinting at a young age and it's not practical to give him bites or to throw him balls, you use the food. It's not practical when you're doing changes of position in a table to throw a ball to reward the dog. It's not practical to be giving bites, okay? Because you're taking them out of the flow of doing the changes of positions into the fight, into the prey biting. It's not practical. So what do you use? You use the food. Okay, it's common sense. You use the food when you're rewarding the biting, or when it's not practical to use a ball. Okay? Any questions? No? Okay, the baton. The baton is a very important tool. Okay? In the imprinting training, it's a very important tool. The puppy must learn that this is a part of your body. That's what the only purpose for holding a baton in puppy training. It's not for touching the dog. Okay? Like you see some trainers, you know, giving the sack, giving the flirt pole, giving the tug, and he's touching the dog. There's no need to touch the dog at that age. From 8 weeks to 4.5 months, there's no need to touch the dog with a baton. The only thing you want to do is show the dog that it's a part of your body. You let him hear it, let him see it moving around, but you never touch the dog with a baton at that age. Never touch the dog with a baton at that age. Now, you can, if you're a high-skilled decoy and you have a lot of experience, you can touch the dog. You can even barrage the dog, and you can even hit the dog, but you gotta have the right dog, and you gotta have the right decoy. Okay? You don't have to do it that way though. That comes later on. But before 4.5 months, this is just an extension of the decoy's body. So that every time the puppy sees a baton, he says, oh, that's part of his arm. It's nothing new. That's what the baton is used for in puppy training. Okay? The gunfire. The gunfire. Never, 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 never shoot a gun. There's only one occasion. But never, never, never shoot a gun around the puppy before he's 4.5 months old in a close area. When he's biting, anything. There's only one time that you can do it. Okay? And that's when you're going to test the dog. There's only one time. And you don't do it ever inside the dog's zone of comfort. Every dog has a comfort zone. A sphere of, once you penetrate that, a circle, a distance around his person, that once you step into that, he's going to feel that you're close enough for me to react two ways. With insecurity, or insecurity being doubt, you know, what to expect out of you, or with confidence. Okay? Once you enter that, like say a meter around the dog, you never shoot a gun. Never. Because you're going to create problems. Never shoot a gun around a puppy. When you're doing puppy work, you do use the gun before the 4.5 months. Okay? You shoot the gun at a distance. I like to shoot the gun at a distance when the dog is doing something they like doing. For example, when the dogs are eating, at a distance, I'll shoot the pup, always a small caliber, a 22. A very small caliber, at a distance. Try to do it when the dogs are doing something they enjoy. Okay? When there's no stress in their life at that time. At a distance. Okay? 20, 30, 40, 50 yards. Let them hear it. Okay? You can walk around the kennel. Boom. But never near the dog where he feels threatened by the gun. Okay? That comes after the 4.5 months. Any questions on the gun and the baton? Now, let's talk a little bit also about artificial stressors. For example, over there, John, I have all those bottles full of rocks over there that I use to desensitize the puppy. Okay? It's not necessary to have little toys, little worms, this and that. Just something that's in the ground that makes noises that you can use to fulfill the purpose of desensitizing the puppy when he's biting, when he's prey biting, you know, that he doesn't feel stressed or has never seen that before. Okay, you can condition a puppy to deal with all that if you do it correctly. There's also artifice that you use. Artifices are things that are decoy holds, okay, and that makes noise, that moves around, poses a threat. This could be this is not an artifice. This is a weapon, okay. But you could have a big old styrofoam baseball bat or worm or whatever in one hand and a hula hoop in the other with straps. Those are artifice. When do you teach the artifice? There's no need to do artifice training before 4.5 months. A lot of people do it, but it's not necessary. That comes later. First, you teach the dog to bite good. Once the bite is strong and solid, then you teach the artifice. The artifice has to have a certain process of steps. I learned this when I went to France. In France, they're very careful about how they begin a dog with artifice. First, you teach the dog the artifice. You put the dog behind a fence. Behind the fence, the dog feels strong, pumped up, secure. Got a barrier in front of him. He knows he's not going to get hurt. The dog is pumped up. And then the decoy is on the other side of that fence with the artifice, agitating the dog. showing him, hey, it's a part of my body, just like the baton, the same principle. It's a part of my body. It's nothing new. You've seen me with it before. It's not something that he's going to see for the first time when he's biting on the decoy. After he's seen that for like 3-4 times, he doesn't get to bite. He just sees the decoy. And you go to another training. After you've done that 3 or 4 times, the next time that you're going to do artifice training is when the decoy will be holding it, okay? He's not going to be using it much. You never pose a threat with a puppy, with the artifice. You just let him hear it. You never touch him with it, just let him hear it. When the puppy's biting the sack, you can, just let him hear it, let him see it's a part of it. Work him into it. While he's biting is the second step. First behind the fence, then when the dog is biting, you show him the artifice, you can pick it up after the dog is biting the sack, you're working him. Always move the sack, keep the puppy in spray drive so that he doesn't have a chance to think about the artifice. Same principle with the baton. Whenever the puppy is being introduced to baton, okay, or the gun, you never have the puppy stationary biting on a sack. The puppy's never biting stationary. The puppy's not standing there with a sack in his mouth. And you're working the baton, you're working the gun, or you're working the artifice. No. At the beginning, the puppy's kept in prey drive. The sack is being moved all the time, and then you're introducing the artifice, the baton, or the gun. But the puppy's thinking about holding on. He's not thinking about, hey, what's that he's got in his hand? He doesn't have a chance for that. He just knows it's there and says, oh, guess what? He's holding that, but I got to hold on to my bite. This is more important. And you're working the dog. He sees the decoy holding it 1 training session, 2 training session, 3, 4, 5. The puppy says, that's nothing. Then you start to show it to him, wave it real fast over his head while he's working the bite. Okay? What's the principle there? Oh, he's waving it over. The puppy's thinking, oh, the artifice is flying over my head, the baton is flying over my head, the gunshots are flying over my head, but I got to hold on to this sack because I don't want to lose the bite. He's not concentrating on what you're teaching. But he knows in the back of his head, hey, the artifice, the gun, the baton, whatever the case may be, the atomic bomb was over my head while I was biting and nothing happened. You're developing, you're improving, you're strengthening. Then later on, when the dog has a great bite, the third step is to teach the dog to come bite the sack. The puppy learns to come bite the sack on ascend with the artifice in your hand. That's the last step. You never start it in any other order. You never start a puppy with artifice, with a baton, with a gun, with anything that's an artificial stressor, okay, on ascent. Never. You first teach it behind the fence, then you teach it when he's on the bite, and then you teach it after he's had all that foundation laid on him. When he's coming in, you can do a little bit of shaking of the artifice, you can do a little bit of shaking of the baton, and he bites it, boom, boom, and you keep working. That's the order that you have to do. To introduce the baton, the gun, and the artifice. Any questions? Okay, the prey biting, actual prey biting. This is something, okay, I have here a timeline in the papers that I gave you that tells you, okay, it says here whelping stage from when the puppy's born to the 4.5 month period. It says here 2 months. After 2 months, it says the critical imprinting age from 8 weeks to 4.5, 14, 16 weeks. From 8 weeks to 14, 16 weeks. That's the critical imprinting stage. And over here, it tells you, okay, the stuff you have to work on and the time in that puppy's imprinting life that you should apply these techniques. For example, it says socialization of a puppy at 8 weeks. I mean, when the puppy, as soon as taken out of the litter from the mother and the litter, you start socializing at 8 weeks. It says also introduction of the baton. at 3 months. The puppy does a lot of biting for a whole month. First you get the puppy biting good, the prey biting, which is what we're going to cover next. Once the puppy's biting really, really good, you always put one step at a time. You always do things like on a progression state type of thing in dog training. You first get to do the main thing before you go to the little extras on the main thing. So the main thing is for the dog to be biting the sack real solid, real strong for a whole month. Then you introduce the baton, like I showed you. You just hold it and make them think it's a part of your body. That's at 3 months. Then you have the prey biting. The prey biting begins at 8 weeks. That's the first thing that you have to start when you, even before you start socializing the dog. You start the prey biting. I use the flip. I'm going to show you later on how to use it. Then you have the ball, retrieve, and hunt drive. The first thing you start teaching is the ball drive. That's the ball drive is when the dog chases the ball. When you throw the ball and the dog chases it, that's the ball drive. Retrieval drive is when the dog picks it up and brings it back to you. Hunt drive is when you throw it in the bushes, you're holding the dog, and after the ball stops and it's stationary and he can't see it, it's in the bushes, you tell him go get it. And he's got to find it with his nose. That's hunt drive. Okay, you start working that at 10 weeks. The changes of positions at 10 weeks. The imprinting of that. The send away 10 weeks. The basket at 4 months. The imprinting of the basket at 4 months. The recalls at 8 weeks. That started also when the biting starts. The recall. Okay? And the out and recall is the last thing you teach before the dog starts teething. That you start on. It's the out and recall at 4 months.
On the second way, what's the imprinting?
Okay, we're going to cover that. We're going to do the actual training techniques.
Okay.
It's usually used, what we usually use is a motivator at the end of the send. So the dog is taught to go find a motivator and then to bring it back. You imprint the idea that when you're sending him, he's got to go to the end of the field looking for a motivator. Okay, so you're imprinting the idea that he's going to be going straight out. And then through teaching the recalls, whenever you want to call him back, you can recall with the whistle. But the idea you imprint is that you're going to go find the motivator. You're going to find your ball, you're going to find your food, you're going to find your tug. Now, for French, speaking of food, for French ring training, in France, a lot of trainers do not like to use food on the field. When training with food, all the training for this sport is done off the field. I'll explain to you why. You guys, anybody know why?
Food refusal.
No? That's food refusal is not the answer. No? Anybody have an idea?
They want to use the food as a motivator, or use something else other than the food as a motivator?
Yeah, but why? Why don't in France a lot of trainers don't use food on the training field for a motivator? That's one of the reasons. The reason is that in level 2 and level 3 there's bait on the field while your dog's doing protection. There's 6 pieces in level 2 and I believe 8 pieces in ring 3 laying on the field. Chicken, steak, I mean it could be cheese, you know, it could be a Whopper sitting there, you know, right next to the your changes of positions. I mean, the judge will come and he'll put the food, the bait, next to where your dog's going to do a long down to try to tempt him to eat it. Where he's going to land, not where he lands, but close to where he's going to come on the hurdle, back to the recall. I mean, you can strategically place it anywhere. Right next to where you're going to do your introduction. When you step into the ring and talk to the judge and present yourself, where your dog's going to be downing, while you go introduce yourself to your dog. He can place it wherever he thinks is very well strategic. So, a lot of trainers in France do not like to use food to teach their dogs at a young age, hey, there's no eating on the ring field. All your training with the food is done off the ring field. And I do like that technique. It does make a lot of sense. And if it's working for the French, it'll sure as hell work for us. And the trainers that I saw in France using this technique are at a high level. Way higher than us. So I do think it makes a lot of sense. Any questions?
Yeah, what comes back and fight, tough fight. If I wanted to stop fighting the tug, I would give it to hot dog.
When he's already, that's stuff that should be done in the imprint. Okay, that's stuff that'll teach you in the imprint. That's not stuff that once you get out in the training field and you're doing protection, your dog should know how to out without that. Okay? Your dog already should know how to do an out off the tug. When you get on that, when the dog's 7 months old and you're starting to do ring protection, 6.5 months old, you know, your dog should know how to out the tug already with all this imprint work. Okay? If not, you take them off the field and you work on that imprint. You can always go back when you're already doing protection and work on your foundation with your dog, of your outing, of your recalling, of your changes of positions, of your biting, you know, whatever you may need to do, you can always go back. He's got that in his foundation already. You can always revert to that, to the prey biting. A lot of dogs in France, after doing the French Cup, that are, I mean, the best dogs in the world, and in Ring 3, after a Ring 3 decoy gets done with them with a baton, they have to go back to a tug to bite again because they don't want to bite again. Okay? They have to go back to their foundation of biting a tug to get them biting, then to get them to a leg sleeve, then to get them to the pants, then to get them to the arms, to the chest, to get them biting, to get them going again, to rebuild the dog. You always can go back to your foundation. That's the importance too of having laid down a good foundation in a ring dog. Because later on, you encounter a problem where your dog has a confidence problem. You have a foundation that you can lay, that you can fall upon, to go back, to work your dog and to begin again. Yes?
My quest of looking for a puppy as I am right now.
Speak a little louder.
I'd say, in my quest of looking for a puppy, I ran into someone who was telling me some things, and I wanted to get your feedback on it, because I don't necessarily believe the man, not to say that he's lying, just my trainer's interpretation of it. He says when he gets a young puppy, the first thing he likes to do is use a leather, piece of leather as opposed to burlap to really know what the dog is all about. That would tell him more about that dog than burlap. I don't really know what I'm trying to say. Do you understand?
I don't either. No, because in plain English, what he's telling me is that you're expecting something out of a puppy that hasn't been worked.
Should come out of the dog as opposed to.
It's something that you know, how can you give a person an exam on trigonometry before he's had arithmetic? How do you expect them to pass that test? Does it make any sense?
No, exactly. I think he just wants to see the raw.
Joe, dog training is all about common sense. A dog's mind is all about common sense. A puppy's mind is more common sense than a dog's mind. Everything is black and white to a puppy. It has to be common sense or else it's not going to function. Witchcraft ain't going to get it. You know, training with little bottles of Coke full of rocks and throwing it at a dog to teach him how to out. Getting a throw chain and throwing it at him to teach him how to out. The dog doesn't know what the hell you're throwing it at him. If the dog doesn't understand what an out is, clearly in his mind, he's saying, you're a jerk, dude. Don't throw that thing at me anymore. I'm going to go and bite you. What do you expect him to learn, you know what I mean? How to duck good. He's going to learn how to duck real good or how to get hit real good, you know. He's going to develop a tough hide. I don't see anything else that makes sense out of those type of training techniques or those type of philosophies.
That's why
It's you as a handler, okay, when dealing with dogs, always think, what makes sense? It has to make sense or else it's not feasible in dog
to me, it was counterproductive of what I've been told by you, so that's why I
of
wanted
course.
to get your impression.
It has to make sense to you. If it doesn't make any sense, forget about it. It ain't going to make sense to your puppy. That's the only thing that gets me.
His own analogy to that was the fact that if the dog has it, he'll see it, then he'll bite it. And that tells him more about that. That was his analogy.
I guess. Hey, listen, another thing. There's a million ways to train dogs. Every dog is different. You don't use the same techniques on every dog. As a matter of fact, you have to use different techniques on the different personalities of dogs, the different bloodlines, the different levels of working ability, the different backgrounds. You have to train a dog differently every time. You don't. There's not a set book on how to train every dog.
It's like parenting. They can't write any books because every child is different.
Exactly. So it's the best rule to go by is common sense. If it doesn't make sense, okay. Let me wrap this up so we can get some lunch. Get lunch. Okay. Okay. The last one we were talking about was the ball work. Okay. Beautiful. Okay, we're going to be imprinting the changes of positions. The imprinting of the changes of positions, the imprinting of the send away, the imprinting of the basket, the imprinting of the recall, and the imprinting of the out and recall is going to be done physically. I'm not going to sit here and explain to you something that I must be showing you. Okay, so we're going to be doing that when we come back from lunch. Is there any questions that anybody might have in reference to anything that we've covered? Anything that you have any notions about or wondering before you got to the seminar?
What about civil? The word civil in dogs. How much civil should there be in a dog? Too much? Too little?
Okay, I'll explain to you. That's a very good question. That's a very good question. Civil drive is the opposite of what it means. It's talking about civilian. It's talking about a person that's not wearing equipment. It's talking about a dog that's showing aggression towards a person without equipment and street clothes. A dog that's instinctively aggressive towards strangers. A dog that's showing defense, that's showing teeth. His ears are up. His tail is straight back, and he's showing aggression towards a person. Okay, that's civil drive. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about drives before we leave. Okay, it's important. For ring sport, okay, for ring sport, you do not want to start a dog off civilly. Okay, there's no need for that. The proper training drives that are used for French ring sport are prey drives. Okay? If you teach properly a prey dog and you develop a prey dog properly to hunt and to kill his prey throughout the training, okay, the dog will develop solid working prey drive. Okay? Now, it is important as soon as the dog, after this, and it's not in this seminar. This seminar deals from when a dog is born to a 4.5-month-old puppy before he starts teething. But it is important once that stage of teething passes and you start doing the protection work, when you're imprinting the leg sleeve, okay, for you, after you work the tug and you start working the leg sleeve, for you, or the arm sleeve, wherever you want to teach a dog to bite, okay, for you to teach or imprint what is called the prey biting, then the prey carry magnifies the prey drive in the dog's working ability. For when the dog comes back after that prey carry and faces a decoy, for you to imprint just a little bit, a little injection of fight drive. It's born out of defensive drive, but you must imprint a little bit of fight drive so the dog understands to drop the equipment and direct his attention at the decoy. To develop, that's what develops his civil drive. Okay, and you do not want, there's two types of civil drive. You want civil out of fear and civil out of power. You do not want civil out of fear. Civil out of fear is born out of defense. A dog that stays in defense, a dog that's locked in defense. You don't want that type of dog. You want a civil dog that is civil at the end of the line, looking for the fight, throwing bites. Okay? His ears are pointing back. He's just looking to fight, to bite you, just throwing bites, trying to get at the decoy, not staying on the sack, not staying on the tug, not staying on the sleeve. Drops the sleeve and straight at the decoy. Come on, bring it to me. That's the civil drive you want. That's the drive you want. That's the drive that teaches a dog. Now, for ring sport, you do not want to train your dog this way because that has its pros and it has its cons. It has its side effects later on. That's where experience comes in. You do not want some of the side effects for ring sport, okay, or that you could receive. Okay, I'll explain to you the side effects later on down the road from that type of training. That's why I'm saying you inject a little bit of that. Why do you inject a little bit of that? So that the dog does not become locked in prey and only bites equipment, and so that the dog learns to protect on the streets in a real life situation. Okay? If you do not do it at that stage, at that age, your dog will be only a dog that bites equipment. And it will take one hell of a good decoy if later on, a couple months later on, you do address that problem to bring them out of just biting equipment. That's why it's important at that age, Joe, for you to teach the dog the imprinting, just to let him understand. You do not want to develop that. You just want to let him understand, hey, I can function in the streets. It doesn't have to be only in the ring where there's equipment only. You understand? Now, if you have a dog that's very defensive, that comes to your club, that doesn't have all the foundation we were talking about, don't work this, because it creates nerve problems later on. That's the side effect. Okay? Work him in prey, and strengthen him through prey. Prey calms the dog down, gives him stability, gives him stamina when he's working, gives him power. Okay? If you're going to train a dog for police work, if you're going to train a dog for personal protection, if you're going to train a dog for guard dog work, where he has to be man-oriented, okay, great. Develop that civilness out of strength, which is fight drive, not out of fear, which is defense. Develop his fight drive. Okay, make him civil. That's why you see the KMPV dogs that are police dogs. Very emotional. When a dog works in fight drive, the KMPV training is all based on fight drive training. It's not prey biting. It's not defensive fighting. It's all fight drive. They teach the dog to be, from a young age, to be handler hard, to be civil on everybody, to be super civil, and to fight the man without the equipment, because they're police dogs. That's a great technique. That's the way it should be done. That's why the results of KMPV training are excellent. KMPV dogs are awesome. Okay? But for long periods of work, such as search and an escort with guards, a 15-second fight with a decoy at a ring 3 level with a ring 3 baton, it's not good, because the dogs that are reared in this type of training at that age develop the side effect of no stability. No stamina, excuse me. They're stable, but no stamina in their body work. Why? Because fight drive training is too emotional. The dog that's in fight drive throwing teeth and saying, hey, I'm going to hurt you before you hurt me. That's how they think when they're in fight drive. I'm going to hurt you before you hurt me, buddy. I'm going to rip you to shreds before you hurt me or my handler. Okay? Those dogs are working on so much adrenaline and emotion that when you start asking them to do the advanced prey work that's required of this sport, they don't last. They can do it, but they can't do it at a level where you teach a dog to work in prey drive. You imprint that type of fight drive. Okay? You don't develop it. You develop it later on slowly. You inject it more and more. Later on, you put a little bit of infusion of that until it becomes super strong. But the dog is being developed in a prey mode, not in a fight drive mode. The dog is working methodically. The dog is working out of power. The dog is working with stamina. The dog can do longer exercises, longer training sessions. Okay? The dog can do a longer exercise such as a search and a guard and an escort. Okay? Okay, the dog can do a basket a lot better when he's thinking and reared in this type of training technique than if he's being trained in a technique that's emotional, that's real draining for his nerves. A dog that works out of fight drive is very, very emotional. His adrenaline drains the dog. A dog that works in KMPV trials has to do a very long routine. Yes, but if you look at the type of exercises they have to do to acquire their titles, the decoy doesn't put any stress on it. The decoy is a tree that's getting bit. He's motionless. There's a lot of stressors. They have to come through a reed, a rod. They have to come through that. There's gunfire. There's a lot of other things. They have to fight a guy. There's a lot of practical scenarios that are used in the street. That is a sport that is used to develop awesome police dogs. So they use the best techniques to develop an awesome police dog, which is that. It's more street oriented. French ring sport is a dog. It's a dog sport that is also police dog training. Okay, but it is more oriented towards a ring type of sport where the exercises are longer. You have to have more guarding exercises. You have to have more precision in the guards without any extra biting. There's more. The exercises are more longer and more detailed. Okay, and much more tougher to train. Okay, much more tougher to train. Okay, you need to develop the dog as a young dog in prey drive, because prey, if done correctly, injecting the fight drive builds a stable dog that can work longer, and it's not as emotional. In order for your dog to be able to deal with a decoy that wants to beat his brains in with a baton, okay, and it is showing him all kinds of stress, he's got to have stamina and he's got to have confidence. He can't be emotional, because in the emotion type of training, which is fight drive, your dog is going to be changing the bite. He's going to be trying to go for the face. He's not going to stay on one bite to hold and take all that pressure. It's a different type of sport. It's a different type of philosophy. Okay.
How do they nurture that defense drive to make them a civil dog as opposed to police? We understand how prey works. What are some of their methods, starting them so young, to make them that emotional?
Just like we developed the prey and inject fight drive into them so they can be street worthy also. In France, let me tell you, they don't care about street worthiness. They care about points, scores, okay? And most of the dogs in France are just prey dogs. They're locked in prey. They don't bite anything but equipment, suits. They don't care about a person, because they do not want the dog to ever show that they'll go for the decoy's face if he falls down, because it shows that your dog is not sportive. Okay, it shows that your dog doesn't want anything to do with the sport. That the dog, they consider that fear. Okay, since the only thing in their mind in France is scores to get to the selectees, to get to the cup. They don't want their dog being street worthy. They want their dogs being ring worthy. But here in America, everybody wants a dog that's dual purpose. They want a dog that can get. That's why we don't get the scores they get. And besides that, we don't have the trainers or the clubs or the size of the country where there's millions of clubs around you and millions of trials and you get better. But the people here in America want a dog that's good in the ring and that's good in the home and in the street. So in the training techniques that are used here in this country, you have to, if you're going to be able to achieve that, inject a little bit of fight drive throughout the prey training so that the dog can retain the civilness that you're asking, okay, in the life of the training, or else the dog's going to get locked in prey and only bite equipment. That's also another thing. You hear a lot of people saying, oh, sport dogs are no good. No, wrong. Prey dogs are no good. Dogs that are locked in prey are no good for the street. Sport dogs, a French ring dog, a French ring 1 has more training than any police dog. Police dogs are attack dogs. They have no control.
Out of defense.
They're personal protection dogs that can search and that they can detect.
Out of defense.
Okay, they can do a building search, they can do a wooded area search, they can do parking lots, and they can detect drugs or explosives. That's it. But none of those dogs can step on the field and do a ring 1 trial.
That's defensive drive.
And that's just first level.
Are they using defensive drive, the police dogs?
No, the police dogs are trained in fight drive. No dog should be trained in defense. How you doing, Gus? Good to see you, buddy. No dogs. Defensive training is not good training. Because what happens is when a dog is...
That's the emotion that you're talking about.
No, the emotion I'm talking about is fight drive.
Oh, fine. I'm sorry.
Okay, when the dog is here, the decoy is over here. Okay, and the decoy is moving in this fashion. Okay, laterally or on an angle away from the dog, never towards the dog, always away from the dog on an angle, and then that way, or like this, in that type of fashion. Any type of motion that's not directly towards the dog, it's prey. When the dog is here, the dog is the gun, and the decoy dictates what drive your dog is going to be placed in when you're going to work him if you're a good decoy. You can put the dog in whatever drive you want him being worked in. As a matter of fact, if you understand drives, that's part of training. Okay? If you see that the dog has a problem in his defense, and you want to bring the defense up a little bit, you got to know how to put him in defense. If you think the dog is all prey and you want to start bringing some fight drive out of him to make him street worthy, you got to solicit the defense to bring out the fight drive. So what happens? How do you solicit the defense? Anytime that this is the dog, that the decoy charges directly at the dog, is posing a direct threat to the dog. The dog has to think, hey, I'm going to defend myself and my handler. So the dog is being solicited to go into defensive dog. That's how that works. Okay? I don't want to get into that. That's another subject. Okay, let's take a lunch break. Any questions? Let's take...
They're looking for you, Gus.
Come here, Baba. Come on, Radar. Big ears.
Radar. That's a pretty name.
The sable one is a male. These are the runts of the litter, of course.
Oh.
That's the boy. That's the girl. 8 weeks old. They've never seen a sack before. They've never done any puppy bite work. They've never even been around other puppies. They've always been in a cage. They haven't been socialized, nothing. As you can see, that one over there is very shy. This guy here is a little bit more outgoing. But what we're going to talk about now is how to begin with a puppy that's never done this before, working the sack. So what you do is you open up the sack, lay it down, grab the puppy, you lay it on top of the sack. Okay? Alright? Let him walk around it. You let them see you pick up your toys that make noise. You lay it down without making sure that they get stressed out or get scared of it. That you're not intimidating them in any way.
You know how it's going,
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Don't get out of it.
These guys don't even have names yet. Puppies, puppies. Let's call them puppies. Here, guys. To be honest with you, I've never even picked them up before. Okay, but you lay the puppy on top of the sack. All right.
He's peeing again.
You pick up the sack and you try to attract attention. Right now, they're more interested in what's going on around them than the actual work. Look at this. Look at this. Look at the sack. Standing on it. It's no big deal. You're introducing the sack to the puppy. That's the main thing first. Okay? A lot of people just start playing with the sack, which is good. Got a good puppy, they'll lock onto it. But I like to let them stand over, let them know that, hey, this is no big deal. You know? I try to turn it into a game. It's a fun educational game for them. then I put a little bit of motion into it. Hey, look,
Look.
got a little bit. Hey,
Look
we
at
got
that.
a bite going here. Girl. As soon as they out the bite, you put them in prey drive again. You make them chase you. This is the first time they've ever done this. Come on, guys. Attack, attack, attack. It's good to imprint the bite command. Telling them to attack. Attack. Attack, attack, attack. That way, when they hear that word attack, they've heard it before. They're not starting out. Hey. As soon as they bite, give them a big reward by giving them a big fight. That's the main thing.
Callie wants to go after it.
Attack, 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 attack. Hey. Good girl, good girl. At the beginning, you start. When they're biting, you get them used to being pet as they bite. To desensitize them from the handler, touch them.
She's tugging on something over there.
Attack, attack, attack. Attack, attack. Attack, good attack. Very bien. Okay, this puppy has something that I don't like. When I do this kind of work, I always look for certain things. I watch the dog's mouth. If the dog opens the mouth and tries to spit out the sack, I don't like that puppy from the beginning. This puppy could be worked and could be developed. The puppy can reach a point where he locks on and holds, and he can work. Later on, he's going to have a good bite and everything. But from the very beginning, I like a dog that doesn't spit out the sack, that likes to bite the sack and likes to hold it. And the only time it comes out of his mouth is when I drop the flirt pole and I say the game's over. That's the main thing to look for in this stage. A puppy that opens his mouth and spits out the sack, from the very beginning, look for another puppy. That's not the strongest prey biter in the group. That's one of the things that we talked about that you can't determine in selecting a puppy. That doesn't mean that dog's not going to be the best biter later on. Remember, it's a crapshoot. But, hey, good girl. Then again, they've never seen this before. They've never seen a sack before. Okay, let's put these puppies away. And let's get other puppies that have done it. That's what it looks like. Hey, c'est bon. Voila. This puppy's teething right now. He's already in the teething stage. He's 4.5 months. See, so he's hurting. You don't do powerful biting, prey biting when he's teething. You just very gentle. Just so he can keep the grip and not lose the hard mouth. The hardness is mouth. But this puppy, before he reached the teething stage, has such a hard bite that you can lift him up, shake him, shake him, shake him, shake him, he won't let go. He won't even adjust the bite when he won't.
T-Rex is in the harness.
Voilà, alien, c'est bien. Okay, that's what that looks like. Alien, attack. Wait. After the dog adjusts the bites, a big reward by giving him a big fight. And let him have his prey. When he runs off with the prey, he feels like he's won. The dog says, oh, I'm super dog. I won this fight.
Yeah, that's when he knows where he puts it on the top.
Okay, now we're going to start working all the other dogs. So just make a line here.
Oh, it looks like we're gonna get rent.
Go all the way down to the trailer. We should reach the beach point. We got halfway there, 10 yards. Good. That's much better.
Somali puppy gets stick. Okay, it's good to work the puppies as a group, and I have over there my gunfire man at a distance. Got my baton, I got my flirt pole, and I got my dogs lined up. Okay.
Say bien. Voilà, attaque. Say bien. Wait. Voilà, attaque.
Let her in. Wait.
Say bien, attaque. Voilà, say bien, attaque.
Hey, go out. Little pressure.
Voilà, attaque, attaque.
Hey.
What was that?
Oh my. Hey, good girl. Don't get close. Don't go away. You never let your dogs get with it. Hey, Mayo. Good girl.
What is that?
Let her in. Hey, let her in. Good girl, Mayo. Take on a little break, Harry. Mayo. Pull back. Tension. Letter in. Pull back. Tension. Letter in. Hey, Mayo, she's got a deep flex. Little quick for you, please. Color her Aquaman. Mayo out.
Out?
She doesn't have to do it. I expect you to. Okay, lift her up. Hey, atta girl, mine. Okay, hold it back. Hey. Pull back, tension. Tension. You're in. Hey. You're in. Good girl. Great carry. Little one. Good girl, Abby.
Attention. Attack, attack. Attack, attack.
Hey, baby.
C'est bien. Voilà, attaque. C'est bien. Voilà, attaque. C'est bien.
Better in? Way.
Ah, voilà, attaque. C'est bien. C'est bien, attaque. Bon, attaque. Bon, attaque.
Better in? Better in? Pull back. Better in? Tension? Better in. Tension? Better in? Down, pull straight down, backwards, not upwards. Better in. Break there. Step on the sack. Step on the sack. Hey, atta girl.
C'est bien. Bon, attaque.
She's teeny, so pull back. Better in? Hey,
C'est
good
bien.
girl.
Voilà, attaque.
Okay, John, straight carry.
Voilà. Bon, attaque.
Good job. Fix it up with her hands.
Uh-huh.
She's got hands, she's got paws.
Attaque, attaque.
Oh, she's quick. Great carry, great carry.
Bon,
Gus.
Huh?
oh, là, attaque. Ah, attaque. Ah, attaque. Attack, attack, attack. Ah, voilà. Ah, beautiful. Yeah. Attack, 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 attack.
Keep
Yeah.
coming forward. Back up. Keep your hand, don't go up and back. Your arms travel forward. You gotta have tension coming back. Takura. Pull back, Joe. Let her in. Hey!
Hey, so good for
Right there. Come on. Keep turning her. These puppies are all teething. It's all right. This is their second time biting. Third time. We're going to do gentle bite work with her. Yeah. Now, T-Rex. Gunfire. Whoa! Stay behind the dog side. Pull back. Let him in. Hey, good boy. Take care. Gunfire. You might need ammo. Okay, let me show you that handle. When you're handling, you don't let the dog move forward or backwards. What you do is you figure out the distance you're going to use. You put one leg in front, and you don't move your hands forward or backwards because 1 foot that you do this is 1 foot further his mouth can travel. Okay. You hold him here. When he's biting on the sack, you give a little bit of tension backwards. Okay. When you see that I grab the sack and I tell you let him in, you just go like this. Okay. That'll help him get a full bite. Okay. Okay, and then you come back to tension. Okay. Whenever he bites, you give tension. That makes the dog bite harder. Okay. Okay. Okay, back him up more. I want him right over here. No, not. He's too far out. You don't need to be that far out. This is far. Okay. As long as you're a foot behind his tail. Okay, this puppy has never had any bite work before. Not really. Come on, buddy. Come on, Osiris. Hey! Attack, Osiris. Attack. Hey. Okay, he hasn't had any bite work. Let's let him stand on top of the crate. He's having a little bit of evasiveness about biting it. So we're going to let him understand that, hey, this is nothing to be evasive about. Let him stand over it. Let him pick it up. Get around it. A little bit of pulling. I'm comfortable in biting it.
Doesn't it hurt your arm after
He
a
has
while?
to have this.
Yeah, it hurts me.
You can let have the sack in his mouth without any tension.
As a matter of fact, this is a good idea to put the tripod on. Can you get that for me?
Okay,
It's
so
right by Joe.
the sack to the
Where Gus is, the other Gus.
He has no apprehensiveness about biting. Hey, Osiris. Hey, Osiris. Hit it. Attack, attack. Turn to attack. 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 Come on. Attack. Hey, good bite.
That doesn't matter.
Attack. Attack, Osiris. Attack. Attack, Osiris. Come on, buddy. Come on. Get it.
You're hungry.
Come on. Okay, next time he bites, I'm going to tell you, take him on a straight carry. Cyrus.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, take him on a straight carry. Okay, cool. better off with the flirt ball.
What?
This creates more prey drive. You're gonna have to be very patient with him. You gotta do a lot of this work. This is what his level. This is the level that he's at. You gotta get him chasing, biting. You gotta solicit his prey drive big time.
What?
You know,
So he
digital.
needs a lot of this. When he gets really good at this, then and only
No,
then will he
kind
go
of
to
you
the
put on
run.
your computer, the chip. No, just regular film, right?
Yeah.
35 millimeters.
Give him some motivation. Tell him he's doing good. Don't forget it. Attack him.
First got this little thing right here. You can zoom in.
Yeah.
Come on, sir.
Yeah.
Get up, Osiris. Get it, baby. Come on, buddy. This ain't the beach.
Take one or two of each one. And
Come on. You want a beer?
Besides, there's a lot of people. How much film you have there?
Come on, Osiris. Attack it.
8.
Attack it, baby. Hey.
Not 8 more pictures, but there's
8
20.
exposures you took.
Yeah. Out of like 25.